In this episode of Policy Talks, the Education Minister of Punjab, Vijay Inder Singla, is in an in-depth discussion about the state's education policy with the Centre for Civil Society CEO Yatish Rajawat. Singla, who also was a Congress MP from the Sangrur Lok Sabha constituency from 2009 to 2014, has also represented India at the 2013 UN General Assembly. Singla also holds the portfolio for PWD and is known as an energetic implementer of policies in the Punjab government.
If you were to kind of summarize in your own words, how has COVID-19 affected the education system in the state, both at school level and at higher education level?
I think it has actually the entire ecosystem has demolished. In the sense, it has affected everybody. There was a lot of cohesiveness, which I feel was there amongst the teachers, the school management, or the people who run schools, whether it's the government or the private sector, and also the students. So I think everybody is today is in a challenging time. It has disturbed the overall ecosystem. This is what I feel and how I look at it. And if you look at from the examination cycle, you talk of the children going to schools, the level of education, how it was being done earlier. Now that education is no more happening in the physical manner, everything has shifted to online classes. So it has actually, I think, demolished the entire ecosystem, or you can say in your terms, the education value chain, which has been affected by this.
So how do you think, as a policymaker, as a policy practitioner, you're looking at reviving this chain again, and how long do you think it will take to fully revive it?
See, I think the dent which the COVID-19 has created on this entire system, it will be there for some time. As today we talk, we don't know till how long this COVID-19 is going to go on. Yeah. And as far as you are talking about how I feel, or as a government or as a lawmaker, how I feel that we will be able to cope up, I think that was one good idea that we were able to start a online campaign competition by the name of Ambassadors of Hope in Punjab. That was one idea which I feel that we were able to, start that online campaign, which ultimately came out to be a world record. The mind of the younger people, when it was idle, we all know when a young mind is always very organic, and it is up to us how we can design a program or design a competition, or how we can tap the potential of a young mind, and it should come forward. So I must share with all the people, other people also who are here, or through your channel to the people who are your viewers, that was a very good program which we started, and it actually became a world record that in the span of 8 days, 106,000 children uploaded their videos. See, to participate in a contest would have taken place past, and many youngsters who are studying at various institutions or various levels of education they are taking, they would have participated. But for a child to actually upload a video, first to prepare a video and then upload a video, and then he has to showcase his potential, what he has. I think that was the very good program which we were able to start.
It was a wonderful initiative, and I saw the call to action that you had put there. And it was wonderful to see a state government taking an initiative which largely the civil society should have been pioneering. My question in respect to the Ambassadors of Hope is that, as you know, that while there is, when mobile phones are ubiquitous and almost every home has a smartphone, but there is still a segment of the society which could be below poverty line, which do not have smartphones and cannot access online education per se. How are you looking at that segment of the society when you do these online initiative, whether it is online education or whether it is the Ambassadors of Hope?
See, there are 2-3 challenges which I think we are facing, and everybody, understands the situation also, that every state is trying to do their best in the kind of resources they have, or the kind of systems they have. But as far as we are talking about that segment which is not being tapped because of the lack of either the smartphone or the area is not very well connected with internet connectivity. So I think that challenge is there, and we as a state government, the Dwaba region of Punjab is very prone to listening to radio. So the first thing we did was, in order to have radio connectivity or starting classes on radio, we started in the Dwaba region of Punjab, as so that we thought that in the meantime we can try and get some TV mechanism into place. That's why we advanced the summer vacation a month or so, by 2 months, and give a duration of 1 month starting 10th of April to 11th of May, so that as the lockdown 1 continued to lockdown 2 and 3 and 4, so that children should not waste on time. And because whenever the schools will open, or whenever the education system, whether it's online or physical, comes into place, we are able to, till that time, we are able to provide some kind of education to the youngsters. Yes, there is a segment of people where either there is one smartphone and there are multiple children in a house to go for online education, or there are smartphones are not available, or somewhere smartphones are available, people are so poor that they do not have the capacity to the data. So I got an opportunity to speak to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, and also to the HRD Minister, Government of India, Mr. Nishant, on a video conferencing call. And at one VC, that was the Ravi Shankar Prasad's VC, I was representing my chief minister, because he looks after the communication department. And as we all know, it comes in the central list. So the Government of India is supposed to provide, incentives on that sector. So I had raised up to say that BBNL is one organization of the Government of India, or one PSU of the Government of India, which can provide some kind of internet facilities to this segment of people, so that they are able to cater for the online education, which they were lacking. And not only that, then I had even raised up with the Government of India.
What was the outcome of that suggestions from you?
So rather, I raised, and other states also raised the same point, because all these states which do not have their own channels, those states, those who feel that kind of resources are not there. Rather, I also raised it up with the HRD minister, was that as all the TV channels, all the private channels, they are under the Government of India, the licensing is controlled by the Government of India. We must ensure that as the National Disaster Management Act is enforced, we must ensure that we should ask these channels to provide 2 to 3 hours of free education. They should provide their channels free to the state governments. Because if I look at it from my, if I look at it from my perspective,
you already have state channels which are free to air, and it can use them.
I'll just finish one point here, because I feel that if I look at it from my state government's perspective, and I have to give online education to children studying from class 1 to 12, then I need to give at least 6 hours of education. Suppose I don't have my own channel also, or I try up with Doordarshan, or I use my web channels, or I use my social media platforms to transmit education, still I will be needing 3-4 hours of 2-3 channels, 3-4 hours, which could be given to me under the National Disaster Management Act by the Government of India, because that is enforced. And if I get that, and the same as I am asking, the same other states were asking, if the Government of India can intervene and get us this, we will be able to fulfill that level of education in that segment where we are not able to impart. We all understand the COVID-19 situation. We are trying to, every state is trying to do their best, everybody is trying to do their best. But I think wherever the sport is required, if that support comes, we will be able to perform more better.
So coming to this, so you are using radio and you're trying to use TV as a mode of educating the students of the state, correct?
Like digital learning platforms, you can say.
Yeah. Now, as you know that 80% of the schools in Punjab fall into this category of budget private schools. 80% of your students go into budget private schools. Approximately 7 to 12% would go into government school or high value quality private schools. And these schools are schools which are small. They are typically, run by a family or two. They charge fees anywhere where between 500 rupees to 1500 rupees in a month. And there has been a perpetual call by these schools because at one point the government said that they must continue to pay the teachers. And second, the government said that you must do online education. But third, the government also insisted that parents need not pay the fees on a quarterly basis or need not pay the fees at all till such time the schools start. Uh, and these schools are now basically, reaching bankruptcy or, are almost reaching a point of closure because they don't have liquidity and they don't have resources to even take their existing students online. How do you look at this problem and what are you doing as a policymaker to solve this?
To be very frank, let me share this with you that up till 31st March 2020, whether the school was charging a monthly fees or he was charging a quarterly fees, I'm talking about private schools, everybody had taken the fees because the lockdown one came on 23rd March 2020. And it was only in the month of April and May that they were restricted not to charge fees during the lockdown was there. That was a statement which I gave as an education minister of Punjab, and that was a very cautious decision of our government that we should try and help children or the parents during this lockdown. And when we came to know that the lockdown 2 has come in, lockdown 3 has come in, and there is an important factor to start online classes for children so that they should not lose out on their studies. So keeping that in mind, when the lockdown 2 or lockdown 3 was on, there was an association of the private schools who approached me and told me, sir, that we are providing online classes and at least the tuition fees on the pretext of online classes, we should be allowed to take fees. As the Delhi government had already passed an order, and that order was also substantiated by the Delhi High Court and subsequent of the double bench. And subsequently, in the state of Punjab, on the request of the Private Schools Association, we also allowed them to charge tuition fees, and for only those schools, those who are imparting online education. 2 days later, the Private School Association approached the High Court of Punjab and Haryana High Court in Chandigarh, and the High Court gave schools and allowed them to charge 70% of the last year's fees, so that they are able to compensate. So now they are charging 70% of the fees on the basis of the High Court order, though the final order has still to come on the 12th of June. And also the petition which was filed by the Parent Teachers Association was not listed, but I was told yesterday, because my AG was also following it up with the High Court. So I have come to know that now that has been listed on Monday. So what is the fate of that petition which was filed by the parents, which we as a government were also following it up, because it was on the request of the Private Schools Association that the tuition fees should be allowed from children, those whom we are imparting online education, that was allowed. But now the High Court gave an order in the favor of the private schools to charge 70% of the fees. So the state government was also had to keep quiet, because we have to all follow the orders of the High Court. All the schools in Punjab follow directions, but there are some, those who do not follow direction, those who did not even, there were 55 schools out of maybe 10,000 schools across the state. Those who followed the 55 schools, those who did not follow the first instructions of even the deferment of the fees. So we had to give them notices, and all those 55 schools are under the careful watch about their activities, how they are behaving. Because if we as a government, if they don't want to abide by the orders of the state government under the the whole country is under the National Disaster Management Act. So I think we also need to sometimes take action against such schools. Otherwise, the state government has been very liberal, and I think Punjab is today one of the state governments who has given private schools to enhance fees more than 8% also. All those schools, those who have infrastructure, all those schools, they will have to come in public domain, give a public notice, invite objections, and after everything is settled, they can even charge more than 8%, provided they are giving that kind of infrastructure. So my point, what I'm trying to convey is that we are all always supportive of private schools. And when this COVID-19 situation arises, and if we try to, as a state government, give some order, so I think those those who abided by our order, they are working comfortably. And those who did not abide by our order, we had to actually issue a show cause notice to them. So that was that is all.
I wanted to understand this, and I have tried in my own way speaking to policymakers across the country to understand why is the budget private school or private school seen as something that needs to be controlled, commanded, and pinned down by the government, when it actually serves the interest of the parents. You, in one of your articles, you had mentioned that you have increased the spending on government school by tenfold. But as you know, that parents do not prefer to send their children to government school. They are aspirational and they want to send their children to private school. Now, private schools are an important part of the ecosystem. They should be treated as important. They're like micro entrepreneurs. They create a business, they do their business, they provide a service that is important for the society, and they should be allowed to succeed and grow. But why do you think that the government always ends up into a conflict with the private schools?
I don't think so. There is any conflict which our state government has with the private schools. Number one. What you are saying is, I think this is I would say this is a situation which, emerges automatically. As I told you just now in my previous remark, in which I said that there were, out of 10,000 schools, 55 schools across the state did not abide by our order. I put my email ID in public domain, and I came to know that I got 500 emails from the children, from the teachers who are working in the remote areas, to say that we have not been paid salary from last 4 months. There are some schools who are behaving like that. When I became the education minister, the first order which I brought to public domain was that we should not force a child to buy his books or buy his dresses from the tuck shop. He should have an option to either buy it from outside or buy it from the school tuck shop, so that the parent, if he feels that he's getting a dress cheaper outside or he's getting the books cheaper, should be to buy. I gave that order. Subsequently, some schools started saying that you have to have a particular logo on the shirt or on your pullover or on your waistcoat, so that because now that logo was there by the school, with the school only. So I had to come out with an order that they can sell a badge, maybe of 10 rupees, which he or she can put it on a pullover or on a waistcoat. So my whole idea is, what I'm trying to convey. See, if my children are going to a private school, right? If I have to send my children to a private school, I have to have the confidence there is a confidence level of mine, or I have the paying capacity in my pocket to go to put my child in a private school. But whenever there is this kind of mistrust is there, that is engineered. If some kind of activity is going on in a private school, that is engineered in the mind of a parent at that point of time. There are many schools, those who do a fair job, and once schools are doing a fair job, there are no complaints available. So I think how I look at it is, there are few schools in every state who try to spoil the entire ecosystem of a private school, and ultimately the relationship between the government and the private schools comes under a question mark, or a feeling is generated amongst the parents about how they rate a private school. Otherwise, that's what I said.
So one of the, this conflict is something that is omnipresent in most states. One of the way that policymakers look at addressing it is that they say that the state must distinguish between its regulatory role and its administrative role, because the state also runs schools on its own, and each policy practitioner is also a parent. It is unfair to expect from them a bipartisan behavior of managing the regulatory affairs of the school also. Hence, as you know, the national education policy has suggested that these roles have to be bifurcated. What is your view on that? Do you think that is a reform that Punjab government should do on its own?
See, first of all, let me put the first thing with a small example. In Punjab, we have some schools called the other schools, and
Yeah.
that other school model was a 70-30 model, in which the entire infrastructure was created by the state government, and then we invited private people to come and take over these schools on a 70-30 ratio.
Yeah.
Now, the practice which these private institutions who took over these schools by way of a bidding system at that point of time when I was not, when we people were not in government. So these private organizations which are running other schools also of their own in their private capacities, they also became a part of the state government and took over these schools on a 70-30 ratio. And the wrong practices they started doing was, officially they are paying teachers by way of a check of 20,000 and taking back 10,000 as cash. Or just so what happens is one such organizations, every institution is run like you're talking about a private school that is run by an organization which is at the back of an institution. So if the organization starts doing all this such practices, then we are actually trying to build mistrust. And that mistrust does not limit it to that institute alone, but it gets carried away to other organizations as well.
Yeah.
So my whole point is that this mistrust is not there for all the private schools in the state. There are schools
But
who are those are doing.
as you know, Mr. Singla, that bulk of your schools in Punjab are unaided private schools in the sense that they don't take land from the state, they don't take any aid from the state. They run it on their own premises, which is either a house or a land that is privately owned. If the percentage of that is close to 80%, the aided private school, as you're referring to, the other schools, they contribute a small 5 to 6% of the total universe of schools in their state, and they constitute a small percentage of the private sector school. But I understand the concern that you have pointing out that one wrong action can color the perception of the whole sector. But my question was specifically more geared towards education reforms. This is not an easy situation to solve for a policymaker, and you can go into micromanagement of insisting on badges or controlling the pricing or controlling the uniform pricing or where they should buy. These are all called interventions by the state. They can only increase the complexity of the enterprise to function. So again, I'll repeat the question. Do you think that the state should form a state regulatory body which only regulates, and the administration of schools should be done by a different department?
You're talking about private schools now?
I'm talking about all schools. All schools should be regulated, like for instance in telecom. If you see the telecom regulatory structure, earlier Department of Telecommunication used to own BSNL and MTNL, and it used to also regulate the telecom sector. Then the government said that DOT is not a regulatory body. They created TRAI, and TRAI then allowed private sector and public sector, and it regulates both BSNL, MTNL, and Vodafone and Airtel, private and public both. Similarly, in education, one of the reforms that has been pending for a long period of time is this bifurcation of ownership by the government and regulation by the government.
See, as far as regulation is there, whenever the private schools have spoken about any regulation to be brought in the interest of the people or in the interest of the state government has always gone forward. As I just now told you, that the 8% hike, more than 8% hike, was a decision which our government only did. That was also on the demand of some schools which were, giving better infrastructure or giving better education or the facilities they were providing to the children. So any idea of such a sort, what you are referring to, will be obviously debated and taken up at an appropriate level, because it will not be appropriate for me to comment individually on this, because it will be a collective decision of the state government. And let me put it across at an appropriate level, maybe get the issue whole examined. Because if you look at from the Punjab's perspective, let me put this also very clear to you, that in our state, what is happening, if you look at from the private schools perspective, that every town has a different model of collecting fees. So the cost to student in your technology, in your terminology, what it is, if there is a small town, so he's charging a monthly fees in which he's incorporating everything. And if there's a big town, they are charging an every year an annual fees or a building fund or some other fees. So every small town or a big town in the state of Punjab, when it comes to a private school, they are following a different model. So suppose I have to execute an order in the state of Punjab, which the Honorable High Court has brought in which he said that only 70, they can charge 70% of the fees. If I brought an order to say that only tuition fees is to be charged, so it becomes practically also difficult for me to get that whole order executed on ground very effectively or properly. So what you are suggesting, I think that regulation will be able to give us an opportunity to regulate so many other things which are connected with the education system in the entire state of Punjab. Because whatever is happening till now is everything, what I understand, it's everything is like happening in a haywire manner. So if there is a small town in the border district of Punjab, whether he's paying fees to the teacher or not, I have come to know because I put my email ID in public domain. That's how I have come to know. Otherwise, I would have not come to know.
Absolutely.
Second thing is what I shared with you during my opening remark, in which I just now said that there is a very close relation between the school management, the parent, and the child. I don't want that should break also, because the kind of confidence they enjoy amongst each other, that should always be kept intact. And because each one knows each one's difficulties. If a teacher is working in a particular town for 2,000 rupees, he or she is working because she or he knows that she needs 2,000 rupees, and she can earn those 2,000 after serving a school for 6 hours. For me sitting here and doing a regulation to say that she may be paid minimum 12,000, that will neither be suitable to the school or not. It will be suitable to the
pricing is not the job of the government. I mean, market.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. So it is the mutual relationship between the three is so solid amongst them. And we also wanted that many issues should be resolved amongst themselves. We also understand that if a private school management feels that he's our weak parent, or he's a child of a weak parent, they will also not ask for fees till the time they actually feel that now is the right time to pay up. Rather, I appeal to all the private school owners to say that we must analyze that COVID-19 situation is there. We also know what kind of children coming from which background are studying in our schools. We should also try and give that leverage, and that will be our service towards COVID-19.
I want to ask you a last question, Mr. Singla. As you know that spoken English is a much desired after
spoken English.
Every parent wants his child to speak perfect English because that is the gateway to a career or a job in today's world. Most parents also send their children to private school because they feel that their children will be able to learn a better spoken English than they would normally do at home or in a government school. How do you look at this whole desire of parents and children to learn spoken English? And is there something that you are thinking about doing in this space?
I strongly feel that one should have an open mind, and every child, we should not limit any child to learn a specific language. I am from Punjab. Punjabi da sada pehla, like everybody has to learn Punjabi. So Punjabi landa gal hai. But if I am interested in learning German, so there is no restriction for me to learn German. And if we look at from the global perspective, every child today, if he has to, connect himself with the outside world, he needs to know English. So I think it will be very wrong for me to say that you should not support children to study English, or you should limit children to study something which is not right. But I think some ethical decision making happens. So I would not like to limit anybody to any particular language, and I would rather keep it open for children to decide. But as coming from Punjab, as a Punjab education minister, Punjabi zaruri hai, baki jehdi marzi language tusi padhna chahno, you must study that. And I think life skills are more important, which I feel.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Singla. That was wonderful to talk to you and understand your perspective on this.
Thank you.